Chris has a nice one. I'll bring that to her.
I don't know. I don't wanna jinx anything.
And the stream is... Stream is live.
Nice little piece about you in the paper. Your office, and just
Oh, he's on it. He's
a little recognition. Okay.
So, I,
preliminary
For the town?
hiring.
Yeah, that's good positive stuff.
yes and no. So
Hey,
the
Glenn,
plan
it's not
is right
negative.
now
No.
to have, my thought is to have
Try
a
not,
different interview.
try not to let that happen,
The first interview round would
at all costs.
a few
Nice
handful
positive piece.
minority members of the Winchester Police Department. Majority versus other law enforcement agencies that have nothing to do with the candidates who applied, and myself. Round two would be department directors, and myself and other community partners, including people like Mel, who have to interface with this person frequently. And then round three would be myself and Todd
Steve,
as a
do as
final.
well.
This is, are we comfortable with this? That's the way that, I'm leaning right now. Trying to make a lot of different groups happy. And comfortable. So I know that we had that conversation around when Emery retired. Somebody be on the committee.
Hello, Jonathan.
Given what I heard about how the last hiring committee
Good, how are you?
position, I am not comfortable with it being as small as it was. I think more people shining a light on those situations better.
I'd like to call the regular Board of Selectmen meeting for Tuesday, January 17th, 2023 to order.
Candace Bouchard.
Jonathan Morehart.
Candy Perez.
Josh Kelly.
Todd Archelashi.
Glenn Albanesius.
Stephen Sedlak.
Linda Grappo.
Jack Bork. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda review. We are going to move the discussion with the superintendents up to number 6. Anyone have anything else? Can I have approval of the regular minutes for Tuesday, January 3rd?
So moved.
Thank you, Candace. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Jonathan. Any additions or corrections? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstained?
Sustained.
601. Thank you. Board of Selectmen welcomes public comments. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes or less and may speak only once. Anyone wish to speak? Yes, sir.
Frank Oliveri, 108 Shores Drive. Last Tuesday evening, you had a meeting with the Water and Sewer Board on the public works for the 2 tanks. Mr. Rollins, who was the superintendent, answered my question that I had asked him if we had to only do 1 tank, would he postpone the work on the second, and would he do it at a later time? And his answer was no, only because the board here had secured the 2% bond for the 20-year bond, 2% to cover the cost of the 2 projects, and he felt if he delayed the projects next year or the year after, there might not be that money. My question to you is, since you're putting together a new budget this year and in the next few years, why not set up a infrastructure account to put money on the side, not a lot, but some, over the next 3 to 5 years, whereby you, the town, would be the banker if that came up again, where there was shorter funds, rather than going to the state, which could be a crapshoot if the state isn't available, and you will loan them the money. in this way, you're the bank, you're the house, and you control the money.
Josh, you want to take care of that?
I can look into that proposal, and if the board is so inclined, to give you all a rundown on what it would look like.
Well, it's really the water and sewer, isn't it?
Well, could be.
It is water and sewer, but
But
certainly accounts.
Majority would be water and sewer, but it could be for public works, roads,
We-
anything that comes up short, why go to the state if you can control it?
It's a sinking
We,
fund.
we do,
Yeah, it's sinking fund, exactly.
we do that. We actually do all that.
Oh.
We have our snowplow trucks are self-financed over a 3-year period. A couple other things are self-financed, and we're not paying the finance charges on it. But we have required by law to carry town has the reserve fund balance funds. We also we did put money into a sinking fund for fire trucks. But when budgets get tight, it's tough to put money in for sinking funds when you're trying to scramble to take care of what's happening
I
today.
didn't say a lot, but just a little.
No, but there is. There
Over a
already
period
is.
of time,
Right.
that little cushion.
There is.
You
If-
keep control. That's
But
all.
there is, and we have been.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Frank. Anyone else? Moving on to number 6. Discussion with the superintendents on the fiscal year '24 budget.
Excuse
Todd,
me.
could I,
Steve?
I don't know what you were gonna, I was just gonna preface the remarks by talking about the tour of the schools we had the other day.
No, I was gonna preface it with the point to putting this on the agenda was for the board here to speak. It wasn't, I didn't ask to have it on the agenda for, necessarily report from the schools. So I think, Todd, we need to know which way we're going on this one.
We can get a report from the schools. I think it'll be good to give us the direction that they're at right now, and we can discuss some of the pitfalls we're going to face as a town. Steve?
So I just wanted to appreciate the tour that was provided by the Gilbert School and the Winchester Board last Friday. 4 of the selectmen were able to attend, Candace, John, Linda, and I. There were several Board of Ed members, Doug Fenninger, Tara Sunday, Sandra Strubar. And we took about 45 minutes per school to walk the 3 schools. And got a good feeling about the kinds of things that are happening when you see the kids working with the teachers and the paraprofessionals. And, to see the music classes and math classes and to see the teachers and the staff working hard to do the good job. At the Gilbert School, we learned that there's some issues with the old building. We learned that they would like to replace the floor in the gym, for example. The auditorium needs a lot of refurbishing. And there's a science class there that has some of the furniture from when I was a student there 63 years ago, and it's probably time that they update that science room. Again, I just want to appreciate the boards giving a tour as we approach this important budget season.
It was my understanding that the auditorium and the gymnasium were going to be, there were grants they were receiving from the Gilbert Trust for those,
He said he was seeking grants, enhancement grants from the trust,
for the
so
international students.
I hope it develops.
Okay.
Good evening. Thank you for having me this evening. Greg couldn't be joining us tonight, but Holly and Doug and Tara and Sandra are in the back to be able to support the conversation in any way possible. First, I do want to thank our Board of Ed members and our Board of Selectmen members for taking the time out of your busy schedules to come and visit our schools on Friday. I think a lot of times you see budget numbers and it's disassociated with the impact that it actually has within the walls and settings of a school. And I hope Friday everybody walked away with seeing the value of education and the work that our staff and our children are engaged in every single day. You know, I can argue and say that there is never a lost minute of time when it comes to instruction in the school settings and how critically important every person plays in that role. This conversation really is welcome to center around budget. The Winchester Board of Ed currently has been working hard at drilling down budget numbers. We're about halfway done with our budget at this point. And as with many other districts and municipalities, we're facing the very same things that everybody else is facing. Inflationary costs that are, you know, ravaging budgets, and homeowners and taxpayers alike. We're all seeing the same things. But at the same time, you know, I do want to acknowledge that between the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education, we've historically really tried to be cognizant of the impact that our budgets and our financials have on our mill rate and ultimately the taxpayers. So, you know, while you will see an increase from the Board of Education on the town support line and the appropriated line, I will tell you that we are trying to be as fiscally as responsible as we possibly can, while at the same time meeting contractual and utility obligations that are standard, that we really don't have any wiggle room about. I want to bring you back kind of the past 3 years. I've really been warning, if you will, the Board of Ed and the Board of Selectmen that this day was coming. You know, we've been offsetting a lot of budgets in the past fiscal years through the usage of our non-lapsing fund and also through grant funding. Many of those grants have sunset, and I'm not talking about the ESSER and the ARP grants. I'm talking about some of our reoccurrent state and federal grants. So right now, this upcoming year, because we don't have the amount of carryover grant funds that we used to have, we're seeing a drop in our grant funding of $360,000 that has carried a reoccurrent fee on that on a yearly basis. So just to paint that historic perspective, like whenever you use non-lapsing fund or supplementing with grant services for reoccurrent costs, eventually those costs come to fruition, and we have to be able to find a way to reincorporate or cut those positions from the budget. So, you know, we will be seeing an increase in our town support for education line. Our town support for education line has historically put a lot of our utilities and operating costs in it, as it was so designed. As you are aware, utilities and operations fees are astronomical for municipalities and homeowners alike. And we certainly are no different in terms of what we are seeing on that aspect. So that's something that we are going to work to tackle. So really, you know, what we need out of this conversation, and while I don't have a hard and fast number, other than the number is, I know it's going to increase, and it is not going to be, you know, a 1%. That is not where we are sitting at right now. We know that we need to support both the appropriated budget and the town support for education. So we've seen historically our inflationary rates, or what our average cost that a district would seek in increases on a yearly basis, which typically is between 2 and 3% on a yearly basis. You know, for a long period of time, that really wasn't the case where we were meeting that. So now we are facing loss of grants, coupled with the fact that we've had kind of historically minimally increases or zero increases depending upon the year. So other districts, I just had a Litchfield County Superintendent's meeting this past Thursday, and you know, we went around the table and kind of talked about where many districts are sitting, and Board of Eds kind of across the county right now are throwing out numbers anywhere between 4 and 10% for average increases across districts. So basically, what's going to happen if we are not adequately funded at our minimum rate, which, you know, my practice is never to build in a cushion. I really take you down to the finite number of what it takes to operate this district. So if we cannot support the budget as what it's going to need to be, we are looking at significant staffing cuts. There are no cuts like in a materials line or an instructional supply line or a field trip line. Those were whittled down last year. So taking $1,000 from a supply line and $1,000 from a field trip line isn't gonna make up what we're talking about. We are really at the point now where we're really talking about bodies, and we're talking about employees and services to children. We are also talking about, if we cannot fund this, possibly needing more outplacements in the district in terms of special education. On Friday, the team that was there saw the amount of staff that sometimes it takes to support students instructionally, socially, emotionally, and behaviorally to have them be successful in the learning environment. And those staff are critical to our infrastructure. There is not a wasted soul in our district that doesn't work so hard every single day to be able to support our kids, and everybody has a purpose in our organization. So, you know, we're talking about staff, we're talking about programs, experiences, and services within the district. We're not talking about pieces of line items at this point. So I just invite the conversation. I know it is a tough conversation that we need to engage in. I think, and you know, Holly, please correct me if I'm wrong. I think, you know, a lot of the sentiment that I echo here is very similar to what the Gilbert School is also echoing in terms of the work that they are doing around their budget too. So, you know, I certainly want to invite any Board of Ed member, Corp member, chairman, chairwoman, you know, to come up and speak if you would like.
I should just echo what Melanie said on our budget. Greg unfortunately couldn't be here tonight, but, you know, we're looking at the same thing, salary, contract increases, electricity, heating, those types of things. And Greg's worked with our business office, and we're still in the process of developing that budget, but we're looking at, again, like Melanie said, between the 4 to 10% that Litchfield County is seeing, and not adding any head counts. So.
Anyone on the board have questions
I don't have questions, but.
or comments?
Yeah, are they
Yeah, go ahead.
finished? Are you guys all set?
Yeah.
Like, well,
Do you want us to stay or do you want us to go
you
back?
can say, wherever you're comfortable. I asked for this to be on the agenda tonight and to invite you in for a couple reasons. One, obviously, because the communication issue that happened before. And the second reason is because it started off, well, there's a lot of impacts coming. First of all, you have always been really good with money. I don't question your judgment on the money and whatnot. And this isn't about, because after the last times that I've been speaking, you know, some people thought I was against the school or something like that. And I'm not against the school, but I think what everybody understands, at least those of us in the room, and more importantly, the people that are not in this room right now, is it always comes down to the dollar. I was talking to somebody again today. It's always about the money, right? Where are we going to get the dollar from? You know, if we want to improve a trail, well, we need $1. If we're going to improve a road, we need $1. If we're going to improve a school, we need $1. And so the question is, where do all the dollars have come to? You know, on the school side, we've watched the increases. I know I was, you know, at the Gilbert meeting, which was a public meeting. The preliminary number is $545,000. Well, the preliminary money number on the bonds is $500,000. The preliminary number on, you know, just regular everyday increases to salary, you know, in town hall is like $150,000 to $200,000. You know, the money for, you know, the Hinsdale bond, it'll be offset, and so I think we're good there. But if you look at all the drivers in a budget right now, and then you add on the shift in the reval, and I made these numbers for you all to look at. I showed them to the board last week, but Candace, would you mind dropping those over to them? This is going to be a hard budget, and you know, I've been here, you know, a long time, and we always say budgets are hard, but we've had growth in the past. You know, we've had the growth last year with the cars values. We had the growth with personal property value, and we had, over the past couple of years, 2% or so in real estate growth. Josh is still waiting for the personal property growth, but the cars didn't go up much more in value. The reval has shifted tremendously the amount of property taxes that might be paid by one property versus the other. So what I just gave you, and this is, you know, one of the things that we'll be driven by as a board when we have to make the you know, the final numbers and whatnot, is these are actual people's houses with the reval numbers, and of course, reval numbers are gonna change as people appeal them and whatnot. But this is like the difference in what their house was in the last one with the 33.45 mils, and then this is a series of them as 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30 mils. So first we have to equalize the mill rate, right? And then we'll be, you know, we'll have to look at what the impact of the budget is. So when you look at the impact of a budget, when somebody has a 1 mil increase or a 2 mil increase beyond the equalization, that, because they've already shifted and now they're gonna shift some more on top of that. And so when you see us making decisions around the budget, it's about that dollar and how we're gonna make a dollar go farther. And you all get grants and you all get that, you know, moving around and so how is this all gonna come together where it's not, you know, so expensive for the people that just, our sewer charges just doubled for some people, or at least went up by 50–70%. The water charges went up, electricity has gone up. So I know that people are struggling just as everybody everywhere, and I know you know this, but you know, there's a, you know, I see over at least, if I'm a guessing person and if I was gonna put money on it, I'm seeing over $1 million right now of additional money that's gonna be requested in this budget. And then I don't know how much growth there is, you know, on the growth part, not the reval part, but the growth part. Like how many more new businesses were there that, you know, had some, you know, ovens or sign or whatever it is that gets taxed on personal property? How many new additions were there made on people besides the reval or the new houses? So all those kind of things, you know, come into play. Staffing is here, you know, on the town side, and running into issues with whether or not we're paying enough to have employees. You know, if there's enough money, there's so there's going to be lots of stuff everywhere for everybody to you know, to try to fit in and want. And you know, how can we do it in a way that's going to be affordable for everyone, and, you know, and still be able to drive the goals. And I hope that one thing, and then I'll stop. One of the things that always happens in every budget, in every conversation around a budget, is people go, they cut us. We were cut. Our starting point is usually what you got last year. You know, we usually land on the part that your budget is what you had last year. If people get a decrease in their budget, is from the new money, the new ask, not where they were. And I think that's important for people to try to keep in the back of the mind when we're talking about things. If you ask for $1 million and we give you 500,000, that's 500,000 more than you had last year, or any department had. And I think that we need to make sure that our descriptors of what we're talking about, you know, are the same, and not just, oh, the Board of Selectmen is cutting our budget or cutting their budget or cut this out of the budget, when we are starting from where you were or anybody was and going up. So I think that hopefully department heads remember that, and you know, we all can have that conversation in general, because it's going to be tough. And you know, like, what do people have in their savings accounts that can help? I know that was discussed at the other meeting, and you discussed it tonight. There may not be anything left in savings accounts, or there may be some money in some fund balances to offset things, but we have to wait and see where that goes. But just know, it's not that nobody wants to give anybody, it's not that nobody wants anybody to have anything, and it's not that we don't recognize what is needed, but at the same time, we have to figure out how to do it.
Argue that that's not a great practice to engage in. You know, supplanting your routine costs is not a great practice, because that is what has gotten to us to this table right now. We have been supplanting an offset of funds so that we didn't have to impact programming for years in this district. And that is what's gotten us to this point, that we haven't been, in my opinion, fully funded to the point where we should have been funded. We have then been offsetting through the Board of Education, through the non-lapsing fund. And for the past 3 years, I've been saying, like, that fund is not going to just replenish itself, and that's what's gotten us to the cliff where we're at right now, where we have reoccurring fees now that we have not appropriately integrated into the budget throughout the course of time, and now you're facing this gigantic sum of money that has to be absorbed, and it's being looked at as just a general increase, when it's been historically present, but offset by us offsetting it through either grants or
Right,
non-lapsing fund
but
money.
you're talking about overall, but there are, and I didn't really want to separate things, but there are a case where there's over a $3,000 per student increase over the past 2.5 years. And the shift of money, I mean, the 7 through 12 budget is a $3,000 increase per student over the last 2.5 years. So when I hear that you say that there's no money allocated, or there's no money, granted, a lot of it has been the shift within what you're doing and stuff, but the funding last year was over, $400 and then $500,000. And so that's not insignificant. The funding for Hinsdale is not insignificant. I understand what you're saying. You took the money from the buses that you saved and you put it into programming. You took money from anything you did in special ed and you put it into your budget. And you can see those numbers and whatnot. But it's not true that there's not money in places. And it's, like I said, I didn't want to get into the numbers everywhere and to do all that. But there have been increases in the dollar funds, and that goes just to your line, and you all have to decide what happens with it. And we're not saying that there won't be any increases, and we're not saying that we can't. I'm just saying that last year, people were upset. They said, why did they decide that? How come they didn't tell us that? So I'm just saying, from my position up front, that this is gonna be a very difficult budget. It's gonna be a difficult budget for Josh to figure out, because he has positions right now that are grant funded that we may not be able to fund in a regular budget, that we're here, and the things that were able to be done. Because if we're gonna do the roads, and we're gonna do that bond package, and we're gonna see Anne Marie talking about that later on, how are we going to, how are we going to raise it on top of what's already shifting that we have here? And by the way, we're just the middleman. When it gets out into the public, and they have to vote on it, that's the other thing that happens. If we don't have a control over that piece, then where will it go? So we have to, so we just want to be, nobody's interested in going backwards. Everybody's interested in going forward. It's just how we're going to not prioritize, but how are we going to manage it?
Anyone else? Jack?
Well, a couple meetings ago, I asked that we start talking about the budget so that we'll have no surprises in February. And we gave Josh a direction on what we would like to see as a no tax increase budget, no mill increase budget. Taxes may increase, but no definite mill increase. And we need to talk about it. And, you're here tonight, and Holly, you're representing TJS, right? And the conversation has got to be at your level also with all of your parents, all of the ways that you can get people to understand, because these are the taxpayers that are going to be paying for this budget. And if, in fact, there is an increase because we have options and we try to do whatever we can, we need to know, starting in January and February and March and April, that you have talked with as many people as you can. You've had as many public meetings and discussions about where this budget is and what it could mean, so that when it comes to a town meeting and when it comes to a vote, we've had the support for this. But if we only start talking to these people in May, before the budget is out to a town meeting, then we've lost the incentive. Again, the reason I raised this discussion 2-3 meetings ago is so we could have enough time to let taxpayers know we are facing some difficult situations here. And yeah, it may mean some staff cuts. You need to have that kind of a discussion with your parents to let them know, not with just your staff, but, you know, how many families do you have in the school system? And those families should know they're voters, they pay taxes, and this is what could happen. If you want to draw support for your budget, I think you need to start talking with the people who pay the taxes so that they come out and they tell us, we're willing to pay higher taxes. We're willing to pay more for this budget. But we don't hear that. Right now, all I hear is, I'm not going to pay for more. I've had enough. I can't afford more. And I don't hear the groundswell that's telling me that, hey, the Board of Education budget and the government budget can get increases. I don't hear that. What I hear is the negative side. If we want taxpayers to get better roads, to get better schools, to get better buildings, to have all of the recreation that we would want, they need to support the tax base increase if we're going to have it. If we get negatives, we're going to face presenting a budget that will get passed, so we're not into, okay, it didn't get passed in May, it didn't get passed in June, it didn't get passed in July. We keep going back and back and back, as we have done several years ago, where we faced numerous referendums before we got a budget that was approved. We need support. You need to get support from the ground, from everyone. TGS needs to get all of its parents involved. And if there is going to be any kind of an increase, it's got to come from taxpayers who are willing to say, we'll ante up, we'll pay. If we don't hear that, I'm going to be voting here to say no increase. We can't afford it. We represent taxpayers who say to us, in a majority, don't give us a budget that's going to cost more. And as a representative of those people, I need to listen. As a representative of the people who you have, you need to listen to what they're going to tell you. And if you come back from meetings and they say, yeah, but you know, my gas bill went up, my electricity bill went up, and I can't afford it, then you need to hear that. And then maybe start saying, okay, we're going to have to make bigger cuts than we thought. But if that groundswell doesn't say, and I'm talking about a groundswell, not just one or two, three people, that doesn't say, we support a higher rate of taxes because we support higher education costs or whatever, it's not going to happen. It's a tough, tough year. Candy has said that, I've said that, and I don't think there's anybody on this board who doesn't believe that if we don't come in with a budget that taxpayers will approve, we'll just be fighting this into June and July and coming back with another referendum on a budget. I'd like to make it one good time and say, we've had the support of this. We know if we put this out, it'll get passed. Let's do it right. Start the conversation. Get people supported now.
Any other members of the board? So this probably will be the toughest budget year since I've been on the board, and that'll be, I guess this is year 9, 8. Melanie, Greg, Gilbert, they're going to put together the best budget that they think is possible. Josh is going to do the same on the town side. The boards will look at it and do what they think is best, but at the end of the day, it's going to be the residents that vote. As Jack said, in the 90s, there were 10 referendums. The budget wasn't passed until about October. So like Jack said, there was about 900 people that voted last year in the budget, I believe, between 700 and 900. We have a population of 11,000. So you need to get to a base and see what they can afford, see what they can pay. The prices of home heating oil, crazy. Eggs have doubled in the last year. Gasoline is back up over $80 a barrel, so that's over $3 a gallon. The gas tax is going to be increased, so in June, as we're getting ready to implement our budget, it's going to be 25 cents higher than it is today. So we need to think long and hard on, is it a want, is it a need? And if it's a need, we need to make sure that everyone knows it's a need. And with that, just be confident in your numbers and be able to back them up. Wants versus needs is basically the advice I would give to you, that I'm also going to give to Josh. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
I think when we talk about the fact that the reval has resulted in a significant increase in people's home values, we should also consider the possibility that homes are worth more now in this town because we have a better education program than we did 5 or 10 years ago. Excuse me. When we were in receivership, houses weren't selling very well. Who wants to move to a town with young kids, with a school district that is managed by the state, because we're deemed too incompetent to run it ourselves? So we've made enormous strides in the last few years. And I think, yes, the pandemic had an impact. Certainly inflation has had an impact. But our school population is now over 600, or approaching 600. It was probably 100 less than that a few years ago. So clearly, people are making a decision that this is indeed a town they want to live in. They're willing to buy homes there, and they're probably willing to pay a little bit more to buy a home here than they were a few years ago. So when we look at the whole impact of the reval, I'd just like you to consider the possibility that the education program in this town has improved to the point where we've made everybody's home worth a little bit more. And yes, the bad side of that is your taxes may go up, but when the time comes and you want to sell it, you're going to get a little bit more too. So I just like that.
Thank you, Chairman.
You know, I would never say that the educational system in this town has not advanced tremendously over the last several years. That's a positive, absolutely a positive. And I'd love to continue that kind of trend. And you guys went through a lot with the receivership and then growth from that, and the work that you did on all the grants and the improvement of all the scores. I don't think anybody, at least I don't think anybody sitting on this board would say anything negative about that. We're just facing an issue here this year that we need that support groundswell. And if you say, oh, well, taxpayers' homes have gone up, they can afford more, great, let's hear it from them. Let's hear that. And if we hear that, that's okay. We can support that. But if we don't hear that, Doc, we're not going to get anywhere. You guys have done a tremendous job. And the school system in this town shows that. It's attracting people here, and it's keeping people here. We don't want to lose that. But at the same time, we don't want people to come back and continue saying, I can't afford it, can't afford it, can't afford it. We want to make it fair.
I appreciate that, but I also look at the demographics of this town, and there's a lot of people who are your age and my age who are approaching the point where they're going to have to sell a house to move on. And when that time comes, we all hope that there's a young family who wants to move in, perhaps improve the property, increase the grand list that way, help our school system grow a little bit. So I think as we look at the transition of this town from being demographically a little on the older side, and perhaps we want to be a little bit more vibrant and younger, that's something we have to think about as well.
Work together and make it happen.
Thank you, Mel. Thank you, Holly. Moving on to town manager's report.
Yes, thank you, Todd. Want to point out that since the board last met, JT's Cafe opened on Main Street. That's another business opened. That's another vacant storefront, filled. An RFQ for 508 Main Street is being actively posted and advertised. It's been shared, I know now, on several statewide forums. Those responses are due back to us towards the end of February. If you know anybody who's looking to develop, who wants some prime real estate here on Main Street, as we've pointed out, values are going up. So please pass the word, spread the word along. I want to point out, we had a wonderful manufacturers breakfast meeting held the morning of Thursday, January 12th. It was held at the Tort Law Museum. These are a series of gatherings that we've held over the course of now a couple years to try and get more integrated, have the town be more integrated, and the people who are economic drivers in our community get more connected to our manufacturers, and make sure that they have the forum and the opportunity to connect with each other. So it was a tremendous turnout. There were a lot of great conversations about the direction of the town and the direction of the state that were very positive from the perspective of our manufacturers. And my understanding is that there's now something in the works that would help bring in more Torrington businesses into a subsequent conversation, which always helps us with more connections and perhaps even helps with the spread of businesses into town. Regarding grants, since the board last met, we have approximately a $900,000 request that was sent off to the Community Investment Fund 2030 that was discussed at a previous meeting at the beginning of December. Authorization by this board was given for that grant to go out for improvements to town-owned building, and a $17,000 request was made to the Deep Aquatic Invasive Species Program. Thank you to Candy for helping me assemble numbers and information for that grant request. I don't know what the turnaround time is on either of those grants. From what I recall from previous iterations of the Aquatic Invasive Species Program, it's around early to mid spring, so I don't believe we'll be waiting too long. And with the last Community Investment Fund, CIF, request that we made, it was turned around in approximately 2 months. So I would expect information back in March or April for both of those. We now have the Trails Grant due in March 2023. That's due, and the Transportation Rural Improvement Program, the TRIP program offered by CTDOT, due in April 2023, are in our sights on the horizon for more grant money to come on in. Regarding personnel, the Chief of Police job posting is now closed. That closed on Friday, January 13th. I am very pleased to say that we have some excellent candidates who have applied, people who have left their mark already in the field and who are looking for their next opportunity. So the police department, members of the police department have already had the opportunity to sit with me to talk to me a little bit more about the type of leader that they hope to see. And I have already had the opportunity to go through the various applications, review them, and I hope to be able to take actionable next steps later this week and early next week.
How many applications?
We have about 20.
20?
About 20, yep. Under that number, but pushing up there. Beyond that, we have public safety. I just do want to note for all of you that State Police Troop B has a new lieutenant. That's Lieutenant Corey Swift. She made herself known to me. That's not something that every state police trooper would do, as every state police lieutenant would do. And I very much look forward to working with them and hope that it might be a signal of a little bit more help and cooperation and communication between our department and Troop B out in Canaan. Beyond that, with the police union, I'm currently working on compiling a list of items to be addressed in the upcoming negotiations. We will likely end up finalizing any contract after the new chief is hired. Certainly somebody coming into a multi-million-dollar department overseeing that budget, I don't want to put anybody in a position where they're uncomfortable with the contract being signed right beforehand. And certainly I'd look favorably on having a fresh perspective on that contract with somebody else coming in. With the waterworks, obviously you all know that the $2.3 million increase in borrowing capacity referendum was passed 2 weekends ago. And that's my report for now. Are there any questions that I can answer?
I have two.
Yes.
I'm wondering, the facade and business startup programs, can we get an updated list
Yes.
of those that are closed?
Yes.
That would be great. And you haven't mentioned anything about the emergency overflow shelter on Spencer Street?
Oh, yeah. What would you like to know?
Well, just a couple things. It's been open now.
I'm sorry?
It's been open now for a month and a half.
Yes.
And I was wondering, could we get a census report? Did you have something to say, Todd?
No.
can we get a census report as to where the clients are from, what towns we're servicing up at Spencer Street?
I can provide that to you. I do know that the majority of the individuals who are there right now, I don't have specific numbers.
Okay.
Majority are from Torrington. We
Okay.
do have people who are from as far south as the coast, Connecticut coast, who end
Okay.
up here.
I think that would be
We do have a
helpful.
population, for a significant population, not a majority, but from Winstead. And I can get specific numbers for you next
I
time.
think that would be helpful.
Very good.
So that, but there were two other things on the overflow shelter. Then the transportation. I know there's a shuttle that comes to Winstead twice a day and twice in the
Yep.
morning. Could we get a number as to how many people ride that shuttle and how many people come to the shelter in their cars?
We can.
I believe they had to add a third shuttle.
Is that right?
I believe that's what Jay told me.
Okay. I wasn't aware of that fact, but.
Okay, if we could get some data on that, I think it would be helpful. And then the third thing on the shelter, I'm curious as to public safety. Wondering if there have been any comments from the neighbors and if there are any incident reports or first responder reports.
I'm very happy to say I am aware of absolutely no incident reports, and I am aware of 0 comments. No
Okay.
one has reached out to my office to make a comment
That
or a
would be helpful to get that information. Thanks.
You got it.
Josh, can I ask you about the Trails Grant? What does that cover?
So the Trails Grant, it's offered by CT Deep. There is a small match required. The Trails Grant can cover, they cap is a little bit larger, but their average grant size is somewhere between $300,000 and $500,000. And it can cover any number of things related to state and local trails. What we had envisioned working on with this current grant, I think that you have a thought in your mind, and I've had it too, about Sue Grossman possibly qualifying for it. And the answer is yes, Sue Grossman could qualify for it. It would only cover about a quarter or less at this point with inflation of the costs that we need to push it forward, which is why my mind is actually leaning towards putting the application forward to do work along the Mad River Recreation area. That was the co-hosted information event that we had held on November 30th. Was an effort to try and get a better sense of the community's interest in the development of those trails. And if we go in that direction and we are awarded money, my understanding is that Fit Together has come up with a match that wouldn't require any further municipal aid. So that gives us an opportunity to get a little bit more done without using as much money.
Yeah, I was thinking we really should concentrate on from the DMV to New Street, since that doesn't have any issues with land that abuts, because then it shows still the momentum that we're moving forward on it and not giving up on it. So that's my concern, is that, you know, we got the grant 6 years ago to do the whole thing, and because unfortunately, because of the engineers and everything, the huge delay,
Right.
and now to be turned down because we have, you know, with the other grant, because of the properties that weren't secured, you know, I would hope that the next level would be to at least get it to New Street, to show it keep moving along.
Absolutely. That's a very good point. I'm not sure what the total cost would be to get it to New Street at this point. It might be right in that $300,000 to $500,000 range, and I'll look into it. But I can promise you
Oh,
that.
so the grant is only for $300,000 to $500,000?
That's, so the grant, you can ask for more. I have never heard of more than
Right,
$500,000
right. No, but
being
you're
given.
saying that's what you expect to get.
That's what I expect, yeah.
What's our match?
The match, I believe it's a 25% match, and my understanding, again, if we're able to move forward with a grant application with Fit Together, is that they have money enough to cover that match.
Yeah, because I would think.
That's my understanding.
Because I would think that this year we would not have money to match those.
Right.
No, we don't really have money to match unless we're going to come up with it in this coming year's
Right.
budget, and then that's a whole
Well,
separate
no, that's
conversation.
what I mean with this coming year's budget. I think we have enough budget stressors that.
Yeah, no, I was thinking it was, I didn't realize that one had the 25%, but it,
Understood.
you know, but I think if we get another opportunity, that we should try and get it to New Street.
I agree. Something just to think about as we're talking about the budget, more and more grants. I am seeing fewer and fewer grants that have well, no match, that are 100% funding. The way of the future seems to be these matched grants where communities, localities are putting forward a small amount of money, although very big in our eyes, and the federal and state governments are putting forward the 75 to 80% match. It is something that we need to bear in mind. I understand next year that we have too much of a stressor to be piling on hundreds of thousands of dollars for these matches, but if we want to take advantage of opportunities as they roll forward, we have to think about what the strategy is to put that money aside.
More businesses.
Yeah,
Economic
you're right.
development.
Revenue.
You're right. All of the above.
Any other questions for Josh?
Josh, there's several different questions. Just an update. You said more information about Bachelor. Did you meet with all of the residents?
I did. We had a wonderful meeting on January 5th with members of the community around Bachelor School. We had Candace in attendance. We had Linda in attendance. I think that it was a quality conversation. It was focused on solutions. It was focused on trying to find a situation and agreements that would make everybody happy with the reuse and redevelopment of that site, regardless of what feelings people might have come into the
When do you think
conversation
we're going to be ready to move it ahead into more public discussion?
My hope is at the end of this meeting tonight, we have an executive session, and I'll talk more about that.
Fair enough. Second question has to do with the Gilbert study. Again, they're late?
They
They're
are
still
late.
reporting late?
There is, yes, I have that directly. I have that in an email from the CFO over at the State Department of Education. They do not have it prepared yet. As soon as I have it, I will make sure that all of you have it. I want you to know, though, this is not a holdup on our end. This is not a holdup on our school's end. This is a state matter. They're delayed for whatever reason, and I can only make so many things happen.
I get that. Let me go back to the chief of police position. If we do not hire a chief before our current chief leaves, do we have a temp?
We do. I would like to talk to you all a little bit more about that so you're all aware before a public announcement is made, and then I can give Kurt a call tomorrow and make sure that he's aware, if that's okay with you.
Okay, we could talk about that. And finally, of course, I wasn't in town and I didn't vote, but there was such a small vote for the water, and after all of the discussion, I noticed that in my packet that I wasn't here for, there was a mail-out, a card.
Yep.
I never received that in my own mail while I was gone. So
I did.
don't
I
know-
could have given it to mine to you because you use it.
Excuse me?
I did. I could give mine to you because you have water and sewer.
Oh, you got a mailing?
Yeah.
And
So
you don't,
it was an every door direct mail through the U.S. Postal Service. It's a service that they offer where you give them a certain number of postcards. They deliver one to every mailbox. If you didn't receive one, it's an error on their part. We
maybe it
delivered
was
the
in my
correct-
held mail, but
Maybe.
even in the grouping, I never saw it. But such a small turnout.
Yep.
It was, what, 300 voters?
It was about, I think it was 407, somewhere in there. It was you're right, it's a small turnout, which underscores the point, every vote counts.
Yeah.
37 votes, I think, was the margin,
All right.
which is actually 10%.
Thank you.
How are we on the charging stations?
Charging station, it's a delay. There's a part, my understanding now, is there's a part that's missing that can't be sourced in any sort of quick, on this continent type of way. So the
Okay.
company that oversees the credit card machine readers has had to order it, and it's taken an exorbitantly long amount of time to come in.
That's not workable though right now, right?
The chargers they're workable, but they won't. Again, we could turn them on without credit cards, but nothing's running right now because we're waiting on the credit
Can't
card
charge.
machines to go live.
Electricity has been shut off.
Correct. There's no electricity to that site.
No other questions for Josh? Moving on to the finance director's report. Is Anne Marie here? Yes. She always hides behind that pillar. I can't see her.
Like to put in for a new microphone in the budget next year?
Probably not approved. We'll make do.
Oh, wait, before I start. Sorry.
I can give my copy to Glenn once I'm done looking at it for the record.
Good evening. The numbers that I'm going to give you are through December 31st. For this fiscal year, we're 50% through the fiscal year. Our total current property tax revenue is $17,138,000, which is 66.67% of our budget. That's in comparison to last year of $16,340,000, which was 67.69% of the budget. Our total past due taxes year-to-date are $400,000, which is 87% of our budget, and that's in comparison to $477,000 in the prior year, which was almost 199% of budget. Our total revenues year-to-date, $20.9 million, which is 57.97% of the budget. That's in comparison to $19.9 million, which was 57.05% of our budget. Total expenditures year-to-date, $15,889,000, which is 44.07% of the budget. That's in comparison to $16,915,000 for the prior year, which was 48.48%. The only municipal aid that we received in December was one pilot, our PQAP payment of $16,491. Cash flow at December 31st, $11.4 million of that. Oh, I forgot to update that number. We had $985,000 of that invested in the Northwest Community Bank sweep, $2.3 million in STIF, and almost $5.7 million in the Northwest Community Bank money market. And I know that I mentioned last month that the treasurer has moved a significant amount of those invested funds over to the money market account because that is what's drawing the most interest right now. Our December 22 capital expenditures, we had $135,000 spent on the Sue Grossman Greenway, another $134,000 at Whiting Street, $132,000 on annual road maintenance, just about $8,000 on the Walker Field dugout, and $3,940 on the Walker Field scoreboard repair. The update on the cat hoarding, I know, Josh, you had asked on that. Total donations, $28,887, and our total expenditures, which I think we're just done with now, is $21,325. That leaves the remaining donations of $7,562. Our Hinsdale project, we are still waiting for our reimbursement number 6, which was submitted back in October. We have not been able to coordinate yet with the Board of Ed. Mel was out, and then I was out, and then Nancy was out, but we do have an additional payment request to be submitted, which is another just about $700,000. Our total cost to date with our encumbrances, which is very small at this point, there's only about $7,000 left of encumbrances, is $15.8 million. Josh, did you give everybody the solar account summary?
Yes, everybody should have that. It was in the list, the short stack of items that I gave you at your seats tonight.
Okay. So what I put together, yes, it looks like this. We don't have to go over it tonight. I just kind of wanted to make sure to give it to everyone. I spent a lot of time putting this together and drawing these. Figured it would be a good summary for everyone to see. I know it's a little bit of an eye chart, but these are the 6 accounts, not including Hinsdale. I did send the template over to the Board of Education, asked them to fill in the numbers for Hinsdale. These are for calendar year 2022. January 17th of 2022, I believe, is when the solar farm went online. So you'll see January, February, March, there's nothing in the first few line items. That is because all of our charges from LSC and all of our credits for LSC came in one lump sum in April. So that first line item that you see in April on LSC and the solar credits is a lump sum for the 4 months. And then we are getting those every month after that. The solar credits we receive are on a month lag. So when for instance, let's take for instance the November credits. Those November credits won't come until we get our December Eversource bill. And you'll see for most of these, the only thing we've received in December so far is our Eversource bill that just came in the mail. And we won't get the LSC and the solar credit numbers on that probably till the beginning of February. They're on a good month or so lag for them. This just gives you an idea. So for the full year, our net solar credits that are coming back to the town, that's including water and sewer, is $54,488.
What are the two different 338 Main Street?
Good, that's a good question, because I went over that with Jim Rollins today, because I knew somebody was going to ask that. So one of them is our main meter, and one of them is a separate meter that used to be for probate court, so we have two meters.
Oh, it's the same building?
Yes, it's the same building. They're all in
It's like
town hall.
police and then-
No, and that's why I asked them. They're all in town hall, but I guess probate used to be separate, so we still have a separate meter for that.
So in reading these credits, you're saying 54,487 so far that we did not have to pay in electrical charges because we received this as credit.
Correct. So if you look at what I put together, I gave you the Eversource monthly bills.
Yep.
I gave you the LSC, which is what's running the solar farm, and then the offsetting solar credits that we're getting. So I gave you the net solar credits on a monthly basis for each of these accounts.
Yep.
And then you've got the total cost, the total electricity cost, Eversource, LSC, and solar credits all lumped together for the full year for each of these accounts.
Now, you mentioned Hinsdale.
Correct.
So is that the 7th account?
Yes.
Okay, so we don't know, that figure is only 54,000. That doesn't include like the whole program of what's saving the town.
Right.
So Hinsdale would include.
Right, so you'll have a portion that was on Bachelor, and then the solar farm credits were switched over to Hinsdale when Hinsdale went online.
And this is only for 9 months, so basically.
No, this is for 12 months. This is for 12 months of Eversource and 11 months of LSE. Because we don't have December, and we won't have December LSE for a while. We just received November's LSE. We just paid it last week.
Yeah, I only count 8 months, but.
That's why I said April is January, February, March, and
okay,
April
okay.
altogether. So you've got those 4 months all lumped into one.
Okay, sorry.
And that's why you'll see for some of the larger ones, you'll see a large credit. Like if you look at, for the sewer, the top right, you'll see the LSE for April is $27,879 and the credits of $31,799. Wouldn't that be nice if we got that every month in credits? But that's the accumulation of half of January, February, March, and April.
Thanks.
Okay. So if anybody else, we'll keep this up to date as we get these in on a monthly basis. This is a good tool. We're going to use this to help with our budgeting also for 2024.
So are you planning on giving us a report like this on a monthly basis?
It may not be on a monthly basis. When I get these bills in, I do try to update it, but it will be an ongoing basis for me to actually update how the formulas pull in these. I'd like to do it monthly, but it may not be every month.
Family quarterly is fine.
It's just for us, for my purposes, it gives, I summarize these in a little different format that would be confusing for everybody. I wanted to put it in a format that was going to make sense for everyone and was easy to read. It just takes a little time to get this to draw from all the numbers that I'm putting into my schedules.
Well, I only see it needed annually because it's based upon what was promised to us in the contract. So as I recall, it was 50,000 we would save, so at least.
Well, and that's why I kind of wanted to get it done for tonight, because the subject had come up at the sewer meeting, and I figured you were going to ask the question, so I made sure to have it available.
Thank you.
Would you say again what LSE stands for?
Solar farm.
Lodestar Energy.
Electric, yeah, our energy.
What else did we want to go over? A little bit of bonding stuff?
Yes, so I did hand out the bonding schedule that we can talk about, and everybody also has a proposed bonding, schedule of payments over the course of the next however many years.
You know what, before
And
we
then
go,
have the
before we go to that,
calendar.
let me just run down the summary, the other summary that I gave to everyone,
Okay.
which is this one that I just handed to everyone, the 2-page summary. So what I did, and just for your purposes, I have something very similar to this that I created. It took me a lot of time to create. That is a comparison on a line-by-line basis year over year for every single line item in the general fund for revenues and expenditures. Gives me a good snapshot of what all the line items are doing.
Instead of the little detail underneath.
Well, it's coming off of the reports.
Right.
It's very similar to the reports that you're seeing,
It's a
but
summary
well, this is what you're seeing as a summary. I have the detail of all the line items, which gives us a variance for every single line item. But what I wanted to give you, and I will try to get to you on a monthly basis, is this, which is just a summary at a much higher level. And this somewhat mirrors one of the reports that you will see in the audited financials. The expenditures by department, categorized by general government, public safety, public works, health, park and rec, and then all of the rest of the line items in here. And then what I tried to do to give you for now is just an idea of where we're at year to date, revenue minus expenditures, with and without encumbrances. So where we are for dollars actually spent, and then where we are year to date revenue versus what is encumbered. And obviously we'll get closer to those numbers. And this does include the encumbrance numbers for the Board of Education. And those do not pull through on our monthly reports, so I have to get that number from the Board of Education. My hope is to update this with prior year numbers for you so that you'll have a comparison. It's just I didn't get to do that because it's a lot of formulas and to create this. Just for your knowledge, the detailed report behind this that gives me every single line item will then make it much easier for me to create projected results. So what I can do is I will, as I go forward, make some more formulas that will allow me to pull and get some by line item what our projections are. And I hope to do those on a quarterly basis. So I hope to be able to get those as of with the December 31st numbers, and then with our March numbers, and then as we get closer to the end of June, if I can get those updated, I'll update those on a monthly basis. And that will then feed into this here, and you'll see by department and in total what our projections are for the full year. So if anybody finds errors in here, please let me know, because there's a whole lot of formulas pulling here, and I may have made a mistake.
Josh, if I could, with all of the doom and gloom we're talking about budgeting for next year, any thought about when you might put a freeze on spending in this current year?
We'll talk about bonding a little bit first, but I will talk about the freeze right after that.
Okay.
Do you want to jump into bonding?
Yes, I'd certainly love to. So we had a meeting with our bond counsel and with our bond advisor last week to review our bonding calendar or set our bonding calendar and to come up with just some preliminary numbers as to what we were looking at in terms of our first bonding anticipated. I didn't print off the calendar, but we're looking at closing. It's going to close at the beginning of April, correct, Josh? That's what's on the calendar there?
Yes, Wednesday, April 5th.
Okay.
Is the settlement date.
Is the settlement
sale
date.
date will be the end of March, Thursday, March 23rd.
Okay, and we were trying to coordinate that, obviously, with our budget calendar so that we don't overload ourselves at any one point in time, so that we can kind of make sure we have a little time management in there.
But also so that we have the final numbers for next
Right.
year's budget before it's finalized by
Right.
this board.
Right.
So we'll have those in hand and the bonds will be sold by that point.
So what we looked at was the schedule that we had worked on, that Public Works had worked on to come up with the cash flows. And again, these are preliminary, and we will get these closer if there is to be some adjustment on these numbers. So what we looked at right now is for the road bond piece of it would be and I'm sorry, but I'm getting tired, so I'm having a hard time reading tonight. 6.8, is it 6.8 or $6.6 million?
Yep.
for the road bond for our first issuance, and then $5 million for Hinsdale. And that $5 million for Hinsdale, that's just a marker right now, just so you know. We know that we've drawn $5 million on our line of credit. We don't expect at the end of the day for our full cost to be $5 million on Hinsdale, but the issue becomes retainage with the state of Connecticut. So if I look at where we are right now, and give me a minute. As of right now, with what we've recorded as revenue, our retainage, which is 5% of the total reimbursable cost, is just about $532,000. That $532,000 may sit there, and it may sit there for a year, it may sit there for 2, it may sit there for 10, until the state of Connecticut gets around to doing the school audit. And we have no idea how long that's going to take. There are towns that are sitting on school audits for years and years. So we had a discussion with bond counsel and with our bond advisor in terms of, what do we do with that? Do we bond for the full amount? Probably not the greatest idea. Do we do short-term bond or short-term notes for that piece that is the retainage piece? Because at the end of the day, we may be on the hook for that. If they come back and they audit that, that may be a part of the town's cost. So we will have to have further discussions. Cindy and I had a preliminary discussion a few weeks ago when I had looked at where we were at with Hinsdale in terms of eligible costs, and then what the town has funded and what we've got for surplus in the town funded piece of it, and then how we structure this. So just know that that $5 million is just a preliminary placeholder right now. So it may not be that number.
Yeah, being on the Hinsdale School Committee and stuff, we were talking about a $4.4 million bond. So why can't we carry that on our fund balance?
Well, that's the answer. Those are the answers that we didn't get into an extremely detailed conversation. We got into a little bit with bond counsel and with our bond advisor, but that's something that we have to figure out. So we have not figured out, and have not sat down and figured out what the best methodology is to fund that difference and basically fund the retainage.
Right. So when I see these numbers, and I've heard, being in meetings and stuff and looking at this bond, and we're going to have to approve a bond in a very short period of time, I would think that we would carry that retainage through our fund balance, because that's why we have so much money in fund balance.
And that very well may be the answer, yes. And that may be because, and what we may have to do with that, and I will have to speak with the auditors on what the methodology is, and whether we put that in an assigned fund balance, whether we put that in committed fund balance, but there has to be some vehicle that restricts that fund balance if that's the decision and the route that's going to take place to...
Right. But it's so much better than us all having to pay interest on money that we're supposed to get reimbursed for.
So just, and that's why I just wanted you to know that we have not had those discussions yet as to what the best route is to go with this. It was just, in our meeting the other day, it was really to set some preliminary numbers and to get some preliminary numbers into this updated spreadsheet so that we have an idea of where we're headed.
And I think we all learned with the Hinsdale project, it's much better to put a conservative number in there and get a windfall later on than it is to put a more relaxed number in there and find out later on that we might be on the hook for something.
Right,
so until such a time as we have...
Right, but I'm also looking, maybe I'm just ahead.
Yes, you're a little bit ahead, so if just slow a little bit and we'll get you, we'll clarify that stuff. But for tonight's, we don't have that clarification.
I know, but for me, being ahead and stuff, I look at how much money we have to pay in this year's budget, like we just talked to the schools about, and made them feel like...
And we will have that, and we will have those numbers honed in as we move forward with the budget and as we move towards the referendum. We haven't had that discussion. We had our meeting on Thursday, Josh?
Right,
Friday.
But you're going to need some guidance from us, too, in terms of how much, we want to raise our hand for and say, yeah, go ahead on the bond.
Yes. We'll bring it to the meetings. We'll bring
Well,
updated.
Based on your calendar, you want to make sure sure that you know what we're thinking before, because your calendar's gonna go out to all these bond people pretty quickly. You know, like your settlement statements and all that kind of stuff, and, you know, there's,
The final dollar amount is, you know, we can tweak that up until sale date.
well, go ahead, I got more questions on the
Okay.
roads.
Yeah, because one of the things that I was looking at, just so you know, is, you know, when I looked at the split between DAS eligible costs and then our non-bondable costs, and the difference between what's non-bondable and what the town has already allocated versus what we've spent, and there is surplus funds in there right now. So the town has already appropriated, again, a little over 500 and, geez, I can't even read. I think it's 557, and we're only at $191,000. So there's a $366,000 surplus in that town allocation because I believe they did a build as new. More funds are reimbursable than were originally planned on. So that $366,000 gets us very close to the difference between the $5 million and what we hopefully will have to bond, which is closer to 4.6 than it is to the 5. So we will have that discussion as to what's the best route to do this.
We will. Can we talk about the proposed sale calendar for a second, since that's already come up? So right now, today, Tuesday, January 17th, 2023 is the start of this calendar. All of our advisors, all of our bond counsel, they're all aware that there is a clause in the approvals that were voted on at referendum this past May that you need to take a vote before this goes forward. We do also know that you want to see more materials and some concrete numbers in place before we're going forward and having you vote on anything, putting your names to it. So right now, my target is that on February 21st, that's the second meeting in February, February 21st, not the Monday because that's President's Day, we'll come in, and that's when we will have finalized numbers for you. By that point, you can see we'll already have some draft official statement language that you'll be able to take a look at, so you'll know what's actually going out to the bond rating agencies and what's going out to the firms that may be bidding on our bonds. And you can get a better sense of exactly what it is that we're going out to the market with. Again, we're trying to use some conservative numbers here today, and those will get more refined as we go along. In terms of now looking at the debt forecasting that Anne-Marie put together for us, you can see over to the right that we've separated out the total costs increasing year by year by Hinsdale, by the total road bond, and then the total proposed together, and how that adds up across even with our current outstanding debt. I do want to point out we do already have $400,000 that's built into the budget that's currently not being spent this year. So that's $400,000 that we do not expect is going to have to be paid in fiscal year 2023.
There's more than that.
There's more?
Yeah, but wait, there's more.
Well, there's 150.
There's 150, which was
I was going to count
right.
that separate.
Okay.
So there's
yeah.
$400,000 in the recurring budget.
Correct.
Right, that we have allocated to debt service that is not going to be spent this year. And then there's another $150,000 in the non-recurring, non-lapsing fund.
So there's $400,000 that we put in as if we were to go to bond, you know, prior to the end and we were going to have a principal or interest payment that we won't use. We'll use a portion of that potentially on closing costs unless we roll the closing costs into the bond. And then there's the $150,000 that was put as a line item for transfer to a debt service fund. Right. So those funds and whatever's left over whatever we don't use on closing costs could also be transferred to a debt service fund to offset. And we will, again, as we work on the budget, we'll work with those numbers to try to potentially utilize some of that excess debt service money to offset this rise in our debt service and to get us to where we are on a little more gradual incline to offset any spikes.
Exactly. So the proposed budget that comes to you in a couple months' time from me will, with Emery's help, of course, will have an amount of money that's increased in our year-over-year payments for debt service, but it will not be, my expectation is that it will not be the full difference between what's currently allocated and the total proposed that you see here in front of you. We're going to try and, just like Emery said, we're going to try and step this up so that it's palatable, so that it's reasonable, but also that, like Melanie said earlier, we're not just taking all funding from outside of the town's annual operating budget and throwing it at whatever the problem is and creating a larger fiscal cliff for ourselves later on. Having this gradually step up with each fiscal year is going to be the best, most prudent way forward. And I think that these numbers are realistic. To have an increase in the amount of money we're allocating next year in the annual operating budget without, without breaking the bank in at least this department. Can't speak for the others yet.
And some of that discussion may be around level debt service. Is it a fiscal good idea to adopt level debt service so that you know what your debt service is going to be in any given year, and if it's not to that level, any excess goes into your debt service fund to offset future payments. It just makes it a good benchmark to go by so that you hopefully don't go above that debt ceiling, but you know what your debt service is going to be in any given year in your budget. You're not subject to these wild potential swings. And then if you do at some point have to go out for additional bonding for some other project, you may have some surplus sitting in a debt service fund that you don't then have to consider in your current budget. Questions?
Well, I think when we look at the money that we put into last year's budget to pay for these upcoming bonds was to bridge the Hinsdale bond, because we have an expiring bond that doesn't occur this coming year, but it occurs the following year in terms of expiring. So the Hinsdale kind of gets covered by that, but we have to cover the road bonds, and we're looking at, if these numbers are right, we're looking at having to cover probably in new funding $471,000 approximately.
Right. Correct.
And and then the other thing is with the bonds, and I've asked Josh for this, is the breakdown of what the bond, if we're going to borrow money, what is it for? We know what Hinsdale is for, right? So Hinsdale's going to get more reasonable, not be 5 million, but like maybe be 4.4 or 4.6. But we have the fire truck, we're going to have the sidewalks, we're going to have some other, I guess, and then these roads.
Right.
And so what I've asked for the roads, and I know you don't have the answers for them yet, but the same thing we found in the water. And the reason I asked for this is because in the water, with the tanks and inflation and what happened, is that we found out that it costs a whole lot more. So the numbers that were on the roads, that are in the road plans that we got a few months ago, had numbers in terms of what was going to be done for next year. And so I still am interested in knowing, are those numbers still holding for the things that were in that road plan? Because when we go out to bond, as we vote on this, we should know that these pieces of these roads and the fire truck and the sidewalks are what pieces equal the 11 or 12 million dollars we're going to borrow. So when you, in addition to this form, I would hope that we would have exactly what we're paying for in this first round of bonding.
And I think some of that has to come from Public Works, because they're the ones who put the initial schedule together, and to compare what the estimates are versus, if projects are going out to bid, and I don't know what the bid timeline is on those projects.
So looking for bids too, to see where they are, and and some of it's drainage, some of it's engineering, some of it's going to be the actual work, on the construction part of it. But we already know what we've done this fall and what those numbers are, so we can take those numbers from the Whiting Street and things that have already been done and compare it to what's happened. So
I think they have to be rebid. I don't want to find out that it's a bid that's 3 years old.
Well, so none of these projects have been bid at this point, with the exception of Whiting Street,
Right.
just to clarify. So there are estimates, and they're engineered estimates,
Right.
some of which are currently in progress because the engineering's being completed now, and some of which were engineered, I would guess, in the last 1 to 2 years. But even a 1-year-old estimate from an engineer at this point in time is outdated.
Right.
Having all of those continuously redone every month so that we have an understanding of when the best moment is to to go out to bond, I hope you understand, that's not realistic.
I'm not asking for, I'm not asking for a month to month to month.
No, but
These numbers are over 2 years old, if
Right.
at best.
I understand.
And we went with water with 3-year-old numbers. So I'm asking for the latest, greatest, based on what we just spent on Whiting Street, what we just spent on other streets. So, I mean, that's what we're asking for. We didn't.
And I think the
nobody's-
last update we had was October, correct,
Nobody said
Josh?
month to
Yes,
month.
those are the
Yeah.
last numbers that we have, is October.
Nobody said month to month.
Yeah. Any other questions? Josh, were you going to talk on the spending freeze?
Yes, I can talk on the spending freeze. Effective February 1st, we are having all town employees, if there's any discretionary project and funding in their budgets, they have to have additional approvals from my office, from me in particular, so before that project can move forward. It's not going to be a global spending freeze, but having this extra control in place is what Anne Marie and I have discussed, and we believe will help us avoid needing to have a more universal spending freeze. So it's just a matter of good fiscal practice. I believe that we have the means and the capacity to bring the budget in within its own means by the end of the year, and this is going to be a great step to help us in that direction.
And then just the electricity, just a couple on the solar items,
That's
what
right.
we're
So
doing on the
energy
electric
auction.
rate, yes.
Yes. So let me share with all of you, I have actually just tonight, I shared with Anne Marie and Mark Douglas, who is unfortunately not able to tend to this necessarily in a speedy manner this week, but we'll be working along with him to make sure it gets in. We're entering in, I'm doing my best to enter into the Capital Region Council of Governments energy auction. They have a consortium. Over the past several years, they've been able to save several $1 million for their participating municipalities by basically having, it's a reverse auction. But they go out and the companies that feel like participating and working alongside this consortium have an opportunity to submit numbers that they would like to have that they would like to offer out to the members of this consortium. So they are generally lower than you'll see with Eversource. I believe that one of the member towns last year reported having either a 9 or an 11 cent supply charge per kilowatt hour, as opposed to up in the 20s, what you're talking about with Eversource right now. So this is a way to get competition in the mix without us being alone as a town, and with having some efficiencies with simply the size of the group that's going out to the market. So I'm very optimistic about that. In the meantime, Anne Marie and I have also started talking about finding not long-term commitments, because we're hoping that the long-term commitment will come from this energy auction, but finding some short-term opportunities through the state's marketplace, if possible, for the town, just like some of our residents are doing, for the town to find those supply savings.
What about gasoline and gas?
Gasoline, we lock in every year.
Yeah,
Heating oil and.
Heating oil as well.
Diesel and gas, we lock in on those. So we've actually just today locked in for, I think, all of fiscal '24. I'm almost positive we locked in for today.
So can you, when you prepare the budget, can you say what we've locked into things in the beginning?
Because those will be part of the budget packets anyway,
Right.
because that's what we'll.
We've never had it before. So
Yeah,
that's why
those
I'm
will be
asking
part
for
of what,
this year.
as we plan the line items, that will be what we calculate everybody's fuel, or everybody's gas and diesel at.
Josh, review the voting dates that you expect us to, as a Board of Selectmen, to actually vote.
This is for the bond.
Yeah.
My
It's
hope.
not on here as a,
Right, so this is actually for the rating agencies and for our bond counsel and advisor. The date that I am hoping to bring this before you for a vote would be Tuesday, February 21st, and my goal is to have the bond counsel and advisor here at that meeting to answer any remaining questions that you have by that point.
Okay, and
As
then-
we refine numbers, we can also bring more numbers to the next meeting, so that way you see the progression and improvements between now and that February 21st date.
and if we approve that on that date, then we move ahead with distributes final draft of original statements to participants February 23rd, et cetera.
That's right.
Onward.
That's right.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you. Moving on to number 8, number 8-ish, correspondence. Anyone have anything? No correspondence. Moving on to boards and commissions. Steve?
Thank you, Todd. Only one piece of action for consideration this evening, and we've received a resignation from the Soldiers Monument Commission by Sheila Sedlak. I know it was a very difficult decision for her to make, but she's resigning after about 20 years working on that commission, so I think you join me as a board in thanking her for her service to the Soldiers Monument Commission.
Actually, Steve, let me chime in a little bit. Sheila and I have been the longest members of that commission, and I think she is just a couple of years shorter than me, and we're both around 30 years on that commission. She was about 30 years on the commission, and it's sad to see that as a commission member, she's decided not to continue, but she's also said she's going to participate in activities and continue to be active. It's not on tonight's agenda, but the Soldiers Monument Commission has been keeping a list of people who have been interested in working on the commission, not just being a sitting member, but who actually does work, volunteers, who comes to events, who participates. And we do have a person who would like to consider. We had asked him to get information to us tonight, but you have not received it yet. So we do have a person in mind, again, who has been active with us. We have the Soldiers Monument Commission has developed a friends group we call the Sentinel, and anytime we have an event, we ask people from this group to come and help us out, and from time to time we have various people who can make it. This particular person that we're looking at right now has been a pretty active, considerate person, and has actually said to us, if there's an opportunity for a position, I'd like to be considered. Sorry, I can't officially put his name in tonight because he hasn't given you any information, but I'd like to just make it aware that, one, we are very thankful for the 30-plus years that Sheila has given to the Soldiers Monument Commission, and the work that she has done as a volunteer will continue, and that we are ready to fill that seat as soon as possible.
Thank you, Jack. Just a reminder for our public that we are looking for volunteers for our boards and commissions. Currently, we have a vacancy on the Board of Assessment Appeals as an alternate.
No, we don't. We filled that last week.
Okay, so this list is a little dated. Conservation Commission, 2 members, 1 or 2 members for the Architectural Review Committee, about 5 members for the Laurel City Commission, 1 member for EDC, 1 member for Inland Wetlands, 1 member for Planning and Zoning, 1 member for Recreation Board, and 2 members for ZBA. So, to our public out there, get involved in boards and commissions. It's a very rewarding kind of thing, as we just heard from Jack.
Hey, Josh, regarding the new town website, so one of the things I asked this person who were interested in being on the Soldiers Monument Commission to look on the town's page to get the application sheet.
Yeah.
Couldn't find it.
No?
Nope, can't find it. There's lots of stuff we can't find there. There's still a lot of work I know that's going on with that.
Yeah,
but
and these are the kinds of things we need to know. So
Yeah.
the sooner you can pass them along to me, just
there's
CC
no
me on
easy
communications.
access. We have a page that said we're looking for volunteers, and there's no way to access, okay, I want to volunteer. How do I send out information? Who do I send it to? And where's the form? That should be on there. I did notice on the Board of Selectmen's page, if anybody wanted to contact us, we used to have our
emails through the town up there, but there's no contact information for Board of Selectmen. I think I sent you a note on that back in December when it first came out to take a look at that. And there's some links that still aren't working from the list that I had given you back in December. So if you go back to that list and follow through with some of that, you'll find that some of those haven't been corrected. Now, and I understand the guy who's doing this is part-time, and the page looks much better, but there's still a lot that needs to be worked on.
Okay.
I would rather not have my emails up there or personal information. I'd rather they contact.
Yeah, not the personal
No,
emails,
it-
but
it
through
was
the town.
It was
That's
through a
how it used to
contact
be.
form, but I don't think that contact form exists anymore because it's.
I'd rather they just talk to Terry, and Terry forwards me the phone numbers, and then I call them back.
No, well, the Old Town page always was able to, people were able to email us through the town.
Well,
Yeah,
you-
I know that, but I'm just saying,
You also
I
use-
just want to be clear that personal information,
Right. I'm with that, and I'm just looking for the methodology that we had in the old page. And it just worked well, like we would get emails from people who wanted to contact us.
Anything else? We have no unfinished business. Moving on to new business. Item A, refunds as recommended by the Collector of Revenues.
We have 4 refunds as recommended by the Collector of Revenues. All of them certificates of correction totaling $2,112.52. 3 of them are motor vehicle, 1 is real estate. I recommend that the board follow the advice of the Collector of Revenue and approve these refunds.
Do we have a motion?
approve the refunds as recommended by the Collector of Revenues.
Thank you, Candy. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Candace. All in favor? Unanimous? And there's an Oshkosh, Wisconsin. There you go. Item B, driveway permit variance, 664 East Wakefield Boulevard.
So, personally, I had been under the impression that we may have either the applicant, the Director of Public Works, or both here tonight. In absence of them, what I can do is go through the packet materials that have been provided to you and verify that the existing driveway slope is between 9 and 10% of a grade. The proposed, and I can show you the plans here if everybody wants to come up to the table, or if anybody wants to come up to the table at any point in time. The proposed driveway is at the same grade as the existing driveway currently is, but in order, because they're redoing it, a variance is required under the driveway ordinance. It's Jim Rollins' opinion that any any variance given would be in harmony with the ordinance as it's been presented to you. It would create a true undue hardship if they were not allowed to repave their driveway at the existing grade in which it occurs. There is no reason here, or there's no real capacity for an engineered plan to decrease the slope, even if you had some kind of, even if you changed up the way in which you have this driveway laid out on the lawn, it still needs to get down the same amount of distance. It's still the same grade. You'd probably just create actually steeper sections, which is only going to hurt the soil erosion and sediment control plan that I have here in front of me. So I recommend, and so does Jim Rollins, that the driveway variance that's presented to you tonight be authorized.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the variance at 664 East Wakefield Boulevard for driveway.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you, Jonathan. Discussion.
Gosh, we had one of these about 2-3 months ago, similar.
We've had, in my time here, you've approved maybe 4 driveway variances, maybe 3?
No, but in that same area, because of the steep slope, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is a steep slope in that area of the lake, yes. There's no way around it, just from the
Andy, are you familiar
the
with that
lot to the
location?
road.
Yeah. I mean, they're. it's
Why
the
doesn't
lane.
it get grandfathered in? Then if it can't change.
Well, Jim was also supposed to redo the driveway ordinance.
Yeah.
That would help with some of these things too.
Makes no
And
sense.
the runoff,
Well, as long as, he has a runoff plan there.
yeah, but it can't.
They're not, it's not a straight driveway into the lake, it's just it's a driveway down to their property. So at the base of their driveway, they can put in a buffer, and I'm assuming that they've been asked to do that.
Yeah,
They
I'm
have,
sure
so they
Jim
have
has-
hedges, they have green space at the other side coming down from the road towards the lake that will catch, and they have an outfall to a splash pad, all of which was going to help mitigate the runoff that comes from the driveway towards the lake.
Yeah, and I'm sure Jim has paid attention to all that. I'm just, we've had, as I said, several of these steep slope driveway approvals.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, could I suggest that we add to the motion that the variance should not exceed a slope of 10%? Didn't I see here that Jim
Yes, it's 9%, and it's acceptable between 9 and 10%.
allow up to 10%?
And this was 9%.
Yeah, because the slope required by the regs is 4% for a distance of 40 feet. Yeah, and as Jim Leonard says, allow up to 10%. Yeah, that's what I was picking up on.
You want to,
That's fine.
okay, add that to our motion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Unanimous? Item D, consider and possibly act on fiscal year '24 budget schedule.
So in your packet, you have the 2023-2024 budget calendar as presented here. This goes through a variety of dates, some of which are internal for my purposes, for my planning purposes, and making sure that our department directors and such remain on target. And others relate very much to all of you and to the public. So this would require, obviously, per the charter, that on or before Wednesday, March 15th, 2023, that I would submit a finalized written budget to all of you with a cover letter as per the charter. The draft will to be published on the town website. Thereafter, my suggestion, and this is a flip from what we did last year, so please bear that in mind. My recommendation would be, since we have a meeting as a Board of Selectmen on Monday, March 20th, 2023 here, already planned, that we come together and have the town's budget presented on that date first before the Board of Education. And then at a separate meeting, which could be held over at Pearson School, we would have on Monday, March 27th, just 1 week later, the public hearing on the Board of Education budget. Thereafter, I've also made sure to note this year, and this is to try and make sure that we're having as clear communication as possible to the public and with our colleagues at the Board of Education and with the Gilbert School. I have listed the regular meetings that lie between March 27th, when the final public hearing is held, and when the budget decision must be made as per the charter. So that way there's no confusion about what some of those key dates are going to be, where those key discussions are going to be. I did also include at the bottom that dates and times are subject to change. Please check on the town's website and town clerk's office for more information about how to, or about other meetings that may be added or times that might change. So trying to be as straightforward and upfront. This does also articulate that by Friday, April 21st, at noon, given that that's the last day that the town clerk is in the office before the deadline passes, the Board of Selectmen must make its budget decisions by then, so that it's 15 days prior to the town meeting, with the town clerk's office still open to accept the notice. Annual town meeting would be held Monday, May 8th, as per the charter, and Saturday, May 27th, is the likely candidate for the budget referendum, being 14 to 21 days after the annual town budget meeting. That's likely the only weekend, that's Saturday, that's going to be acceptable.
Where does this budget calendar get posted on the website?
I post it anywhere you'd like.
I'm asking you. I don't know.
It's certainly it's going to be posted on, if you adopt it tonight, it's going to be posted within the Board of Selectmen minutes. It can be posted as a Board of Selectmen notice. I can put it under legal notices, even though it's not a true legal notice, just to make sure that it circulates. one thing I would really like to do this year that we didn't do last year, and I think might have saved a lot of grief last year, is put out perhaps a little bit of a dressed-up version of this that is meant for public consumption, so that people have an understanding of specifically when are the public hearings, when is the special town meeting, and when do I vote. Those are the key opportunities for people to come, hear what they need to hear, vote the way they want to vote, make their voice heard, and move forward. So that is really something that's a little bit amended to get rid of the internal dates and not confuse anybody. That's something I'd like to circulate more widely to the public. Certainly we could post a version of that in the Winchester Wire that will be published in March. I think that would be a positive thing.
Well, you know, just as I commented to Melanie about making sure she has ground roots and hears from as many of her families as possible, we need to do the same thing. Absolutely knowing that this is going to be a tight budget, absolutely knowing that there are things that we all would like to see in it. And if we get the support, great, but we need to start talking it. And as much as you can get out about the budget calendar, about public information about what's going on and our anticipation, because I don't know how many people actually watch us or you know, how many people actually read or know. I mean, I just don't want to be at a meeting in a vote in May in which everybody votes no after we've been talking about it and we haven't done enough talk. So let's try to get as much out as we can.
Got it.
Any other discussion?
I'd make a motion to approve the budget calendar. Is that what you need?
That would be nice.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Linda. Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Budget calendar is accepted. Moving on to item number 12, citizens' comments. The Board of Selectmen welcomes public comments. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes and speak only once. Please give your name. Anyone wish to speak?
David LaPointe, 11 Hillside Avenue, Winsted, Connecticut. I just want to say, number one, for the past 2 weeks, I've been asking for a fund balance. What is our present fund balance here in Winsted? And that item is a complex item, but it's an item that obviously the town manager should know where we're at. Obviously, the selectmen should know where we're at. I know Anne Marie did talk about some of those fund balances, but not the total fund balance. But as a concerned citizen, we should all be able, and I understand Selectman Perez's privacy concerns, because obviously I know what privacy concerns are, but as public officials, as Jack Bork points out so eloquently, the public, concerned citizens, need to be able to reach their representatives. So when I asked the town clerk for the list of addresses and phone numbers of all of the duly elected selectmen, I couldn't get that list. So I was able to get it via online, because I know each and every one of you from coming
It's
here.
public information of the assessor's database.
Yeah, right, but,
And you could have Terry tell us to call you,
right.
like
but-
we do with other people.
Okay, well, it should be on the website like Jack Bork says. I should be able to contact you via email like we previously
Right.
have been. And so I also want to say that, to what Linda was saying, there have been incidents in regards to the homeless. Namely, last night at my home, okay? I believe a homeless man appeared on my property at 4:47 a.m., and then again, he came back, and I know what he was doing, looking in the garbage can for cans, which are 5 cents, and, you know, we don't throw out our cans. My wife takes them to Stop and Shop, Big Y. But cans are gonna go up now to 10 cents, thanks to the legislature. So there's gonna be more people looking for cans. And we have, maybe he didn't get in up at the hospital. I don't know, but I've talked to him before. He's harmless, but it's kind of scary because I have a camera system that I could see. He was peering in the window and all my alarms outside were going off at 4:47 a.m. So kind of scary when the dog starts barking and the kids wake up and my wife's going, what's going on? And then I had to tell her, and she said, call the police, so then I did. So the police did respond, but it's unfortunate that people are seeing it in our libraries. You know, you go to the library. And these people are good people who are downtrodden and need a helping hand. And it is good that Winston has rose to the occasion to help these people. But I'd rather give them a fishing pole than the fish all the time. And I think that's what we need to do. So I hope information is able to be given to selectmen instead of being certified mail to their houses. And they should have a ways of communicating. And furthermore, taxes
Start to wrap it up, please.
have been going up. And our car taxes have gone up, the house taxes are going up. And it's nice, words are cheap, but actions speak louder than words. And I like the freeze. Well, it's not a global freeze, though.
Thank you, David.
Yep, thank you.
Melanie, Kurt? Moving on to Selectmen's comments and reports. Anyone have anything?
I'd just like to report that Friends of Main Street is going to be having its Bubbles and Truffles event on February 8th. It is also posted on the town website.
Where are you having it this year?
Crystal Peak.
Where?
Crystal Peak.
Oh, Crystal Peak. Yeah, I didn't know. Okay.
I know.
I'm sorry.
I wasn't talking into the mic.
Yeah,
It's my fault.
it's all right. I hear something.
Other reports?
We got a lovely post from a resident who has only been with us 2 years, and she was walking the trails, the rail trail behind 10 Bridge Street. She took a beautiful picture from the walking bridge to Main Street, and I asked her if I could use it for Friends of Main Street on the website and whatever. And she really just talked accolades about how she saw the town transforming itself with the facade improvements and the new businesses. She was really excited to live here and saw the potential. And she also highlighted about the garbage in the trails. She also is interested in joining Friends of Main Street, but she may not have participated in our cleanups either. So that may be her trail next spring. But it was a beautiful picture, and she was very excited about the town. I think she's on your Soldiers Monument Commission as well.
She may be.
She might be.
I had a chance in the last couple of weeks to do one of the oldest trails in the United States. I
The
did about
Appalachian.
40 miles on it, and you know, everywhere I went, people were walking. Lots of people, more, and all kinds of bikes and walkers, and while this trail is somewhat rural and then somewhat urban. The more we can get people out, the better, we're all healthier for doing it.
Lastly, just a comment I made last meeting about setting the mayor's salary to 0 for the rest of the term. Candy also volunteered her salary. We've since learned that this is a violation of the charter, and we can't set it to 0 without a charter commission and a referendum.
Let's elect
I
the
am not
charter.
in
donate
favor
the
of a
money
charter
back.
commission. So
She told you.
going forward, the donations that we make throughout the year will continue to be made to organizations throughout town. With that, can we have a motion to go to executive session to discuss possible sale of town-owned land and the town manager's performance evaluation and contract review?
So moved.
Inviting the town manager.
Second.
Ian Candace. time is 8:53. Go to the blue room, or is economic development still on there?
I will see if they're still in there. We're late enough that they might not be, but otherwise we will go across the hall to
Probate.
The fund balance is a very complicated number to calculate at any given moment in time, and also the Freedom of Information Act's request system is only meant to generate documents that have already been created by town government.
You don't have the fund balance?
I don't have it at this particular second, no. If you need it generated, they're still in the blue room, so we'll go to the blue room.
Look in the audit.
You can look
Look
at the
at
audit
last
for the
year's
most
audit.
recent number.
20
The audit after that will have the next updated number. If you need it between now and then, it's a fee for Amory's time to calculate. I know that Amory communicated that too.
Yes, sir.
Fee to find out how much we have in the bank.
Let's say the property's worth 100,000, and we're paying 33 mils on it right now, so we'd be paying, 3,330.
Right.
But when it dropped to 27 mils, we'd be paying $2,700.
Right.
And if it increased by 20,000, first you have to do this, first this rate amount drops, then the new amount gets in after the new amount.
Right.
So it's a little more complicated than just saying, oh, everybody that went up $30,000 doesn't get an increase.
Right.
Because it's the base rate that helps determine whether there is risk. So this is just kind of examples with just different places that went up in certain values and what the mill rate would be. So we have to equalize first, and if we equalize, then once it's equalized, then we apply an increase from there, but we really need to know what personal property went up.
Right.
You know, the personal, anything new that was built this year, and any personal property that went up, that was added this year, will tell us what their, regular growth rate is. Like in any year, there's a regular growth rate that helps give us funds, so you don't have to raise taxes. This is.
I know you sent me some stuff. I haven't been home, so that's why I couldn't sign for it.
Oh, no, you weren't here.
Well, no,
I only got one vote anyways, don't worry about it.
no, you sent me some letters
It's very still. Oh, okay.
Once in a while, you have to have these kinds of meetings.
You do.
Long.
You really do. Honestly, those are my favorite kind. Gets the job done.
You haven't gone swimming yet, huh?
I have.
Oh. When are you going?
10
10 o'clock? Oh,
10 o'clock. I go to a class.
I was there today at 10:30.
Oh, okay, well, I'll miss you, because I leave. I'm out of the pool, right.
Do you go to the office class? Oh, okay.
As long as I'm
I was down in Florida, I was swimming down there, biking down there.
We, let the record show, we're back from executive session on Tuesday, January 17th at 10:34 PM. The board has directed town manager to continue negotiations on town-owned land. And the town manager's performance evaluation and contract review is ongoing.
I know this is really highly unusual, but I'd like to add something to our agenda for this evening. And that would be to consider the emergency ordinance for the homeless shelter at the Winchester Health Center, as, you know we have to keep moving it along under that ordinance. So may I make a motion to add it to our agenda?
Second?
Thank you. It's emergency, section 307, emergency ordinance. All in favor? Unanimous? Steve?
No, it's added to the agenda. You need to
Yeah.
vote on it now.
I added it to the
Oh,
agenda.
So,
So we need to make a
a
motion
motion.
to,
to that effect, if somebody wants to read that.
Okay.
yeah, that's the motion we need.
I move that we extend the emergency ordinance authorization for the location of the cold weather shelter at the Winchester Health Center for an additional 60 days.
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous?
I move we adjourn.
No, wait, before we adjourn, just in case anybody picks up this meeting at the very end, extending these 60 days out was the plan from the beginning, since we started these, and because of the emergency ordinance and what's in the charter is the 60 days, so it needs to keep rolling, and so that's why we're doing it. It's nothing new, but it needs to keep moving.
Steve?
What? I
Make the
already,
mo- You already did.
oh.
Is there a-
stopped you.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Yeah, it's 10:30. It's- Sure, it's all yours.
Yeah, that's fine. If you want it, you can have it. It's just extra paper. What's that?
So I can copy that.
Yeah, keep it.
Thank you.
Anything you need from me?
Negative.
Out in Largo area.
I'll email you some thoughts on
West
the other.
Yeah, that'd
Went
be
to
good.
Largo? A good friend of mine just moved
So, my plan, I don't know what this is gonna look like next week, but I at least wanna have the first interviews next week.
Yeah, I think.
If you want me to aim for Friday, I can do that.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I don't want to pose a problem